How is working with Mike Breen? I know like you mentioned earlier, you usually do sideline or studio work, but you have called games
Yep.
alongside Breen before.
It's an amazing experience. I mean, he's so talented. Again, it's all for me. It's always been about learning from people I work with, no matter who it is. Sitting next to Mike Greenberg, on the Get Upset, just watching him go. So sitting next to Mike Breen, it's so easy. I don't know if that makes sense. A lot of times you think it's harder because of the pressure of working next to somebody who's a Hall of Famer, who's a legend like him. But it's similar to what anybody might say about playing with Chris Paul. It's just he makes the game easy. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to worry so much. The only thing you have to do when you work with Mike Breen is be prepared because the rest of it is simple. You know when to jump in. You can just sense from his timing. He'll set you up. I just, there are times I will admit it's the first couple of times where I would just sit for a moment and look to my left and say, "That's freaking Mike Breen. Like, what am I doing here?" Like that kind of a feeling. But then I just get into the game because I love the game, and you get lost in it. And by the time the game's over, you just think to yourself like, "Oh, wow, that just happened. Like that was awesome." And our first game, I'll never forget because the very first time I called, I was an analyst on a Knicks game, Knicks broadcast, was Knicks at Dallas Mavericks. This is 3 years ago, and you might recall the ending because the Knicks had a lead, they lost the lead, and they were up three, fouled, made the first free throw. Luka Doncic at the free throw line, and we're talking about all the different matchups and everything, and he's going to miss on purpose. Got to get the rebound, and I'm looking at the setup, and I just say quietly to Mike because he paused, and I go, "Watch out for Luka Doncic. Got to box out the shooter." Sure enough, ball gets tipped right to Doncic, knocks it down, overtime. And it's like that was such a cool moment.
Yeah.
And it was a wild game. Luca had like a 60-point triple double, by the way, in that game also. But like that's a cool thing. And when that game was over, Mike turned to me. It was my first game. He turned to me, he goes, "That was great." Like he was giving me compliments that just makes you feel like maybe I can do this. And again, MSG's been so good to me that from that point, now I think from that year to last year to what I've got this year, I mean, we're talking about I've done well over 20 plus games. And I think of John Andres, I don't know if you know that name,
Yeah.
but Johnny Hoops, I think of him as somebody that has proven that you don't necessarily have to have played in the NBA or played for the Knicks to be able to sit in that seat. And I grew up with Johnny Hoops, listening to him, and that gives me the belief, like, yeah, I could do this, and I love doing it. And Mike Breen endorsing it and supporting it is all I need.